Hello, I'm Monica Knighton, and thanks for tuning in to our e-learning video on completing the Individual Professional Development Plan, the IPDP. Now, many of us are thinking, yet another document to complete? Yes, I know. But like so many documents educators are required to complete and submit, the Individual Professional Development Plan is one that is so valuable. Our e-learning objectives for this session include: what is an IPDP? How do I understand the components of the IPDP? How do I successfully complete this plan? And how do I submit the IPDP before the October 30th deadline? Let's get started. An IPDP is like a roadmap. It reveals important strategic steps that we take along the way. An IPDP just doesn't have a start-finish indicator, it has mile markers popped along the way. A successfully written IPDP will provide important information like achievement data, student achievement SMART goals, educated professional learning objectives, professional learning goals that we will meet aligned to those objectives, and a moment of reflection, changes in educators' practices, and finally, results. Whew, we got there, but what did it look like? That's what the results reveal to us. Now, do you see the importance? Yes, so let's get started. Now, you should have before you several documents. One is the DCPS IPDP online Word template, step-by-step PowerPoint. Then you must have a copy of your experienced teacher IPDP. Third, student data. And finally, your school's school improvement plan. What is an IPDP? Well, the Individual Professional Development Plan is your plan for how you will grow as a professional during the school year. IPDPs vary. Not all are alike, and they vary from person to person. You have an experienced teacher IPDP and the novice to match that. You have a school counselor and the novice school counselor. And you also have the school psychologist IPDP and the novice for the psychologist. Let's get started with the experienced teacher IPDP. Before we begin, I want you to consider the following, as I have: your current classroom level disaggregated student achievement data, your previous IPDP, school improvement plan for this current school year, and your current school initiatives. Now, as we look at the IPDP, take a look at the top section. Take the time to fill in your name, your school, your administrator, your grade level, and content area. Now let's review the first section of the IPDP. They're broken into 6. You have the student achievement data, you have the student achievement SMART goal, educator professional learning goals, professional learning objectives, changes in educators' practices, and results. We're going to take the first one first, and that is the student achievement data. Take a look at that. Now remember, when you set these SMART goals, you're not judged by whether or not you meet these goals or not. The purpose of this IPDP is to look at strategically what type of professional development do I need to empower my instructional strategies to deliver to these students so that their learning can soar. That's the goal in mind. Now that you've had a chance to look at your identifiable subgroup that you choose to track on your IPDP, let's move on over to the box to the right. That is the assessment type. Now there are 2 types of assessments that we're going to look at. It will be the formative assessment or summative. It's your choice. If you choose formative, you want to look at those ongoing progress monitoring assessments that track students' growth along the way. They could be unit tests, quizzes, portfolios, journals, or more commonly the CGAs, the curriculum guide assessments that are assessed quarterly throughout the whole year. You may be looking at the DAR, the DAR assessments assessed along the year. Whatever you choose, make sure it's the best formative assessment data that you can use to track your students' growth. That filled in, let's take a look at the first section. That is the student achievement data. Take a look at what it says. Now, below, we're going to fill in the boxes step by step. Identify student group within a class or a section. Now, typically, when we get data, it's usually aggregated data. That means it represents your whole student population. But for the IPDP, we want to focus in, narrow down on a specific group. Now, some identified subgroups could be your lowest 25% in your content area, English language learners, ELL, perhaps your subgroup by ethnicity. That means your Black, white, Hispanic, and Asian population. What about your students in RTI Tier 2? Or could you be looking at the economically disadvantaged population, or students with disabilities or behavior groups? Whatever it is, you take the time to decide what is the identifiable group that you're going to look at very, very closely to map out your goals on your individual professional development plan. Take a pause and think about that within your PLC group. Unlike formative assessments, summative data cannot be used to track student progress academically during the school year, and it cannot be used to support educators' professional learning decisions and changes in practice. Okay, we're making progress. We're going to look at Section 2 of the IPDP, Student Achievement SMART Goal. We know that our goals should be SMART, strategic, measurable, attainable, result-based, and time-bound. Let's look at the graphic organizer. In the first box, it asks, or it states, students will score at or above. Now remember, in the Student Achievement Data Section 1, it asks for us to identify our subgroup. Now for my example, I chose the economically disadvantaged group. Remember yours. And then I said, of that subgroup, 68% would achieve mastery at or above 68% mastery in math. Now recall, what was your goal for your particular subgroup? That percentage number will go in this box. Now the next box says assessment type. So my example, I was basing my progress on the CGA baseline. So to determine whether or not my students met the goal at the end of the school year, I'm going to look at the CGA as well, but the fourth quarter CGA. So thus far, my graphic organizer will read, students will score at or above 68% on the math, 8th grade math CGA in April 2015. Take a pause and write yours in. Now, I hope you see the alignment between the Student Data Achievement section and the SMART Goal section. We're going to move on and look at some examples of different types of student achievement SMART goals. Okay, we're making progress. We're going to look at Section 2 of the IPDP, Student Achievement SMART Goal. We know that our goals should be SMART, strategic, measurable, attainable, result-based, and time-bound. Let's look at the graphic organizer. In the first box, it asks, or it states, students will score at or above. Now remember, in the Student Achievement Data Section 1, it asks for us to identify our subgroup. Now for my example, I chose the economically disadvantaged group. Remember yours. And then I said, of that subgroup, 68% would achieve mastery at or above 68% mastery in math. Now recall, what was your goal for your particular subgroup? That percentage number will go in this box. Now the next box says assessment type. So my example, I was basing my progress on the CGA baseline. So to determine whether or not my students met the goal at the end of the school year, I'm going to look at the CGA as well, but the fourth quarter CGA. So thus far, my graphic organizer will read, students will score at or above 68% on the math, 8th grade math CGA in April 2015. Take a pause and write yours in. Section 4, Professional Learning Objectives. Our professional learning objectives should address our student achievement goals and our professional learning goals. Let's look at the table below. Our professional learning objectives should be a minimum of 2 required. We should discuss how we plan to implement them. We should also include an anticipation date of completing these goals and the actual date of completion. Okay, changes in educators' practices. As you know, educators, we're always making changes about our practices, our instructional strategies based on how well the students are learning. Oftentimes, we make changes in our practices based on the professional development that we are receiving. When we're receiving professional development, it should challenge the way we think about how our delivery is in our classroom, the engagement of students, and how well they are processing knowledge. When we find more effective ways to deliver our instructional methods, then that's a time of reflection. Can I improve on what I'm doing? Can I see direct results? And the answer should be yes. Here is where we should notice those changes in educators' practice based on our professional development and based on the rate of learning that students are demonstrating. Okay, the last section, and we're here. That's the signature section. The first box asks for the initial date, and that's the date that you complete and submit your IPDP. The mid-year review date, that's as needed. The end of the year date, that's when you and the administrator will sit down and review the plan to look at the professional development that you have received throughout the year and discuss the improvement as a practitioner that you have made as a result of the professional development, and to see the direct link between your professional development and student data achievement. So right now, we just need your signature and your principal or administrator's signature. Okay, uploading your document. You have a choice. You may submit the completed Word document to your administrator, or you may upload them to the DCPS online IPDP. You're going to follow these steps. Type My Profile in the URL, click Evaluations, click IPDP, and log in using your DCPS and user ID and password. Now, in recap, the Individual Professional Development Plan is your plan for how you will grow as a professional during the school year. The IPDP should reflect your professional learning needs as they create to improving student achievement and enhancing your craft as an educator. Additional strategies or modifications to the initial plan may be needed as formative assessments and other feedback become available. Changes should be a collaborative effort by the teacher and the administrator. The IPDPs are retained for a period of 2 years. Do well and enjoy completing your IPDP.